welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to talk about something most of us in Hampton Roads have waited for a very long time, expansion and additional lanes to the Hampton Roads Bridge-Tunnel. My guest is Jim Utterback from VDOT. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have been with VDOT and around Hampton Roads for a long time. We all know your name.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully that's good. Yes. Hopefully that's good.
But your role is new. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Yes, it's Robin. I've been in Hampton Roads over 6 years, and came down and I ran the district. So for the first 5 years, and really we built a very large construction program. One of the big projects that we were looking at was the HRBT. And so as that project evolved and came to fruition, I moved over to actually be the project director for that project full time.
Because no one could do all of the roads in Hampton Roads plus this. I mean, this is bigger pretty much than everything else, right?
Yes, this is a very large, complex project. So one of the larger projects in the state.
And how many dollars? It's a huge number.
The project budget is $3.8 billion. So that's the overall project budget.
And we've all been working on getting an expansion for a long time, and the biggest hurdle, of course, is paying for it.
Yes.
Just briefly explain sort of who's paying and how we're financing, because $3.8 billion is a huge number.
Yeah, it's a great question, and that has been the key item in being able to do a project like this. Hampton Roads is fortunate, and similar to Northern Virginia, with several years ago there was enabling legislation that allowed the region to collect taxes. So the regional Hampton Roads Transportation Fund is really funding 90% of the project. So the state is, and federal participation is again probably about 10%, but the HRTAC, Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, which is charged with basically allocating that money to road transportation projects, was able to determine how to finance the project. So it's come from Mayor Tuck's a member, a number of other key elected officials in the area coming together in consensus to try to actually develop a way to fund the project.
And that was a huge breakthrough. I mean, we in Hampton Roads had to come to the conclusion that we needed these expansions, because it's not just this, and the rest of the state wasn't necessarily willing to fund them, and we had to step forward and say, you know what, it's important to the growth of the region, to the economics of the region, to the education, and people getting back and forth to facilities.
Yes. The HRBT, as you know, is just a vital link. It is probably one of the most important links in Hampton Roads. This harbor crossing is famous. It's been famous for years. And so the ability to widen or add capacity at this harbor crossing is significant.
And I think, you know, most of us don't look back this far, and I didn't live here then, but there was a time when it was a ferry crossing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two tubes, I mean, 4 tubes is a huge step forward from where we were. So the new one, paint us a picture of what this is going to look like.
Okay, so the best way to describe it is if you're coming from Richmond on 64, we are doing a couple things that are a little bit different. One is the marine crossing is probably the most difficult and complex part of the project with the key marine stakeholders. So I want to say that when we get on land, we're building what would be considered kind of the ultimate configuration. That would be 4 lanes in each direction. So we'd be able to accommodate that eventually. So, but starting out on land, if you're coming from Richmond on 64 eastbound at the Settlers Landing here in Hampton, where you currently go from 3 lanes to 2, we would carry that 3rd lane all the way through to the bridge, which actually would be 4 lanes. Additionally, we are building a shoulder lane, a hard-running shoulder lane for peak hours on the inside. So effectively, we're lining up during peak times 2 lanes on the road to transition onto the bridges to go into the new tunnels. So what you would have is you would come from Hampton onto the marine trestle bridges, and there would be on the right side of the existing facility, there would be 2 new tunnels. So the eastbound traffic would go through the 2 tunnels. Two lanes on the right side would be general purpose. The one plus the managed shoulder would be tolled. So that's how it would go. You would basically go under the federal channel, come up on a marine structure, and go around and across Willoughby Spit and do the same thing on Norfolk land side. So you'd have 3 full-time lanes and 1 managed shoulder all the way to 564. And then coming back the same configuration, going from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, plus a managed shoulder on the land, and 4 lanes on the bridge and tunnel.
So physically, if you're eastbound, where are the new tunnels? The new tube's going to be?
So if you're going eastbound, the newest tunnel is the eastbound tunnel. That's 1976 when it was constructed. The island will be expanded to the right, to the inside toward Newport News. So that side. And the North Island, as we call it, will almost be doubled in size, so to accommodate the 2 new tunnels. Okay.
So again, how long is this going to take?
So the construction is around 55 months. So 4 years, 4.5 years is what is currently scheduled.
That is, it's a lot for the drivers to think about, traffic during that part of time, but it's such a big project that's really kind of not a lot of time. You've got a tough schedule.
It's a very aggressive schedule. It's a very aggressive schedule. There is some benefit, and probably without getting into too much detail, but the South Island is actually much larger than the North Island. So this project is going to be, the tunnels are going to be constructed much differently than all the other tunnels in Hampton Roads.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It is. So the technology is actually for what we call soft ground boring is very new. 10 years ago, we would not be talking about this. We would be basically doing an immersed tube tunnel where you trench across the federal channel and
drop
cast elements and basically lower them into place and build it that way. With this project, the South Island is large enough that they can, when they get their design progressed, they can actually build a launching pit for the tunnel boring machine. So what it will do is the tunnel will be bored from the South Island to the North Island. It will turn around on a turntable and bore back to the South Island. So the tunnel, with the bored tunnel, the tunnels can be closer together, much closer together.
Okay.
So that enables us to stay on the South Island primarily. There is some extension on the south side just to try to get the machine into good material, stable material to do the tunneling or excavating of the tunnel.
So that's so cool. So you were able to do the boring, which kept you in a little tighter. You didn't need as much space.
Yes.
And also because you had the island. So it's the technology and the fact that the island was there to be your anchor for the machines.
Right.
So that's really cool because originally, when you first were looking at it, you were going to need a lot of land. You were going to need to buy up some stuff around there, and there's very little of that now, right?
Right.
People who might be worried can relax.
Exactly. The commitment is to keep the project within the existing right-of-way, particularly on the land. So there is some temporary easements in various places along the corridor, but the permanent works will stay within the VDOT right-of-way.
And you have officially sort of started. I mean, there are people out there now surveying. We might see them in Hampton if you live anywhere in that area.
Correct.
Don't be too nervous. They're just surveying. When will we kind of begin to see things?
That's a great question because with any big project, and there was obviously media coverage when we awarded the contract in early April.
It's starting now.
Exactly, and the message is you can't get done soon enough. When do you start?
Right.
Well, it's a single contract with a joint contractor joint venture, so it's a large team, but they have to get their permit. So there is a large joint permit application. and they have to get their design. So the design, the construction means and methods, all of that's being worked right now. They're surveying, they're verifying a lot of the soil conditions. So you'll see some boring rigs either along the shoulder and over the water as they do the additional
soil samples and things like that. Okay.
Investigations. So as they verify a lot of the information we provide them initially. So that activity, there'll be a flurry of that. We're going to continue working with the federal and state agencies on the permitting process and go through that. So we've allocated a fair amount of time to do that. So really the design and permitting runs for the first 1.5 to 2 years. So depending on how well things go.
So really, people won't see, well, they'll see things happening because of soil samples and large rigs and things like that. But you're not able to start construction. There's a big fear out there that you're going to start closing lanes in the middle of the summer and you're going to make a bad situation worse. How are you actually going to do it when you need to be, on the roadway?
So one of the things that's unique about this project is a large portion of it is what we call, it's a marine works project. So the tunnels are on the basically the west side of the existing facility, so are the new bridges. So the initial work around excavating the island, there will be cranes. So the cranes may be some distraction initially as they prepare the launching pit. And everything, all of the marine and bridge construction will go along beside the existing roadway over water. He will start the land work, and so there is some potential traffic shifts. It's all being worked right now, but the requirement is to keep 2 lanes open in each direction.
Which is exactly what we have now.
That's
and
exactly what we have right
now. I think people need to hear that.
Yes.
It might slow down because there's cool stuff you want to look at, but you're going to keep the same lanes we have. It won't get better right away, not until 2025, but it shouldn't get worse.
It shouldn't get worse. I mean,
other than the fact that we're constantly growing and it gets a little worse every summer.
Sure, and that's exactly. It is a bad situation at times during the year. Sometimes, some people would debate it's all the time, depending on when you go through there, but it is. We will keep the lanes open. There will be some traffic shifts, primarily when we move from the old bridge to the new bridge and into the tunnels.
But that's not the bulk of the work. That's I assume, fairly late in the process when you begin to tie everything in.
Right. You will do some shifts later in the process. So, and again, their schedule, they're working on. We've started looking at that. But there is the real difficulty and what we call the critical path, longest path through the project, is the tunneling. So constructing these tunnels and commissioning them and building the bridges is the critical path. The other roadway work, and there's 26 landside bridges that will be widening as well.
Yeah, I forget how many bridges we have.
So all of that will be going on as well, because that work is, again, because we're so tight, will be the project primarily, I think, is a lot of it will go under construction at the same time, probably late next year when they get the permit, middle to late next year.
Okay, so right now, really, we're seeing surveyors, we'll be seeing soil samples and boring, and that'll look kind of cool. It might slow people down because they want to see what's going on, but not a real impact for a while. Little noise on the borers for the soil samples, probably, if you're right there.
People probably won't notice it. We've done investigations. VDOT has in the last 2 years. People haven't noticed it. You'll see some barging for the overwater samples, but really shouldn't be too much distraction.
So I feel like you're giving us this, good news that we're not going to see anything for a while, but boy, people kind of want to see stuff. They don't want the roads to get worse, but boy, they want to see something happening.
Right.
And I think it's especially exciting because we've all lived through that expansion of 3 lanes in each direction from Williamsburg this way, and that's, well, you're not quite to, I don't know how far you're going, but Williamsburg, up to Williamsburg's pretty well completed. Yes.
First 12 miles is completed, and the last 8 miles that's currently planned will go to Lightfoot. So.
And that's, I think, gives people some sense of confidence and relief that we know it is getting better. We
Yes.
know you're working on it. We know it's getting better. There was some discomfort sometimes when that backed up a little bit, but it's so much better now than it used to be.
It is much better.
You could come down from D.C. and sail through 95 and then get stuck, you know, get backed up on that little area of 64, and
yes,
that's better now.
That is much improved, absolutely.
So, and I probably should direct this to your communications person, but you're going to have on your website updates and details. You guys are going to send Hampton what's going on the roads if it's going to impact drivers. We're going to put it out in our e-news and on our website, and we're all going to really work closely to communicate.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. There's a huge outreach effort that will go with a project like this, and I think once we get through the permitting and have the design and how it's going to be constructed, we'll be much better positioned to really let people know how this is going to be built and what potential impacts, and let travelers and community folks know that are around.
Yeah, I think people need to see progress. People need to know what's going on. Change is scary, and but if you explain to people what and how and when, it's a little less intimidating. So we're all going to do that as much as possible. People still might have to actually read their e-news or open things to get the messages, but you guys are also going to have the electronic billboards, and it's so helpful, you know, when you give people the warning before 664 when they have the choice, which is the smoothest way to go, divide up the traffic as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
That bridge-tunnel's getting a little backed up too. You know, when it was first built, it was the secret. You could just sail right through.
Secret, right.
And now there's
it has its times. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we're growing as a region.
Yes.
How is this? And this might be, you know, this is not an engineering question, but you've worked with leaders and the mayors in Hampton Roads. This expansion is going to help the economy and give our region a chance to grow economically and maybe a little more diversified than our economy right now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that was one of the challenges with this a large project like this was the regional consensus, and to see that come together over the last couple years, and everyone behind and recognizing how important this crossing is, and adding capacity at this location has been, I think, a huge win for the area.
I think so too. And I think in the long run, what we're going to find though is if this area continues to grow, we can't just always have one car, one person driving. There have to be other solutions as well.
Agree.
And I know you all are involved in that too, and high occupancy lanes and mass transit and tying that all together to make transportation opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Jim, we're going to close now because we're out of time. I hope that you or somebody else from VDOT will come back periodically to let us know what's going on. Is there anything you want to say now that I haven't asked you?
No, I think this is helpful. Again, we are just getting started. We're in like week 11 of the contract, so a lot of work is being done in the front end, and I do think it's very important. And thank you for having me on the show, and we just need to continue to update. And this is a good platform, as well as a lot of the social media and how we reach out. It's understanding people want to know information, and as soon as we get it, we're going to get it out there. And bear with us as we get through the initial permitting and design, and then these regular communications will be a big help for everybody.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I know we all know why they're building those tubes, and we want them done now, but understanding the process and the timetable and how it's going to happen is going to help us all get through until 2025. Thanks for watching.